I'm about to chat to Claire Russell, who's the founder of playHOORAY, an amazing woman. She used to be a reception teacher, and so I actually think she's going to be so well placed to help us parents, and especially parents with younger children, navigate this period of time. It's a tough one, running your businesses, trying to be fantastic parents, trying to deal with isolation. This is not easy for anyone, and I can only imagine how much we are beating ourselves up, and Claire is going to be that perfect antidote, giving us tips and tricks to help us through this period of time.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm mum to 5-year-old Mason, and I am the founder of playHOORAY. Today I am delighted to be talking to Holly all about the importance of play at home, particularly with young children and going through these tricky times at the minute. I'm also going to be talking about running a small business whilst having young children at home, and also starting to reflect on if there's something that lockdown might teach us for when our children do return to school. So I hope you find it helpful, and thank you very much, Holly, for inviting me to be on today.
Hello! How lovely to see you!
Hello, thank you, Holly. Oh my goodness, I'm absolutely shaking. I'm very nervous. As you know, I'm a massive fan.
Oh my gosh, massive fan. I'm a massive fan of you. So tell me, so this week I've been talking a lot about homeschooling whilst running our businesses, parental pressure that we're putting on ourselves, and you know, we're feeling frazzled. And what are your thoughts, because I'm sure you've been thinking about this and talking about this, how best we can help parents and our children right now? And we'll get into more specifics as we go on, but just generally, what's your advice?
I'm hearing a lot from the community of parents that I support. They're beating themselves up big time, big time, as we all are at the moment, because we're trying to run our businesses, we're trying to care for our young children and things, and it's trying to remember that we've been dropped into this dreadful situation. We've had no choice about it. We haven't chosen to homeschool our children. And I'm hearing from parents who do homeschool their children who are finding it hard. We were not prepared for this. So I think it's just, you know, we've got to be realistic about this. And I always say to the parents and carers that I speak to, I love social media. I mean, my whole work is around social media. It's a fantastic place. But if you're not in the right mindset, if you're finding things hard, it can also be really difficult, the whole comparison thing and seeing what other people are doing. We should cut ourselves some slack because our kids think we're great. And let's just remind ourselves and talk to ourselves the way that we talk to our children, is that we are doing a good job. We're doing the best we can in a really tricky situation.
Yeah.
And, you know, if, you know, I come on here and I talk every day about the positives of getting our kids playing and keeping them active and stimulating them, at the same time to allow me to come on to you, because my husband also happens to be on a call. My little boy is watching Paw Patrol for the gazillionth time. You know, it's about balance.
It's a balance of it all. What are your tips at the moment for people with little ones? And, you know, you've said some great things there about not beating ourselves up, but do you have any practical tips?
One thing that I've found for myself that just happens to be working. As a family, we've naturally fallen into a bit of a natural routine, but certainly not structured, because calls happen here, there and everywhere. But something I have found has really helped. So Mason, my little boy, is 5. When we sit down in the morning over breakfast, is we do discuss our day, and we don't plan.
Yes, that's a great plan.
Yeah, we just go through the day. What's going to happen? You know, Mummy's live today. He knows what it's like now. Mummy's live today at 10 o'clock, and what could you do while I'm doing that? And we'll maybe make a bit of a plan. And I've got a pen and paper here, and all we'll do with just a piece of pen and paper is we'll just draw a few symbols. We'll maybe draw, sorry, it's just a blank piece of paper. I'd maybe draw, a bowl for breakfast. We'd have breakfast. Oh, and then we need to brush our teeth. So we'll draw a toothbrush. And then we're going to do a little activity. And so just draw very simple. I mean, I know I'm talking to the crafting community, but we're talking symbols, very simple pictures. And it just maps out the day. And I found that really useful. We'll then stick it on the fridge or stick it somewhere where he can see. And he's able to refer back to it. And he knows roughly what's coming through the day. I mean, plans change all the time, don't they? Life gets in the way and things change. So it's quite flexible, but he knows, you know, after lunch, I'm going to get a chance to play with mummy then, or that's when I need to play independently. Like I say,
such good advice. I think what's interesting, isn't it? And for those who are listening, for a long time, the education system has absolutely needed to be revolutionized, because if we think back to why even people have the summer holidays off, those 6 weeks, well, that was because in the Victorian times, you know, this was all to help the children, to help with harvest. And, you know, you have countries such as Finland, where the education system is the best in the world, and they don't start school until they're 7. You have then France, where they have Wednesdays off to be with their parents. I really think this might be a time for all of us to think about the education system, but also the educators to think about the education system, because do we allow this time where we're seeing our young, you know, I was just going to say as an example of one, my son goes to a class, he finishes the work in half the time, and he says, you know, actually, it's because everyone else is asking questions. Everyone else is doing the thing. I could actually do 8 lessons a day, 10 lessons a day, if I just had my own structure here. And I'm actually finding it much easier just to learn as I'm learning here. What's your perspective on the education system? And do you think that this will wake anyone up?
I think it will. I do. I was watching your not that I watch and listen to every podcast or anything, Holly, but I just listened to your
bless you, thank you.
I just listened to your video. I got most of it about the crafting, and it's so important. It is so important. And yes, so before I started playHOORAY, before having my little boy, I was a primary school teacher. I was in there. It's a really tricky place to be as a teacher at the moment. A lot of my friends are still teaching. I was early years, and you know, you had to fight your corner to keep play on the timetable. That's creativity time. It's just so essential. And our children are getting less and less of it these days. And we're talking 4, 5, 6-year-olds. We're talking the little ones. So by the time, you know, I worked in primary. So by the time the children were getting to 8, 9, 10, there was no play in the timetable whatsoever. And so our children aren't getting exposed to that time anymore. And I think it's so important that we do try and keep our big, as I call the big kids, playing. I know your child is a lot even bigger. But what I hope rather after this lockdown period is our children are hopefully, they are spending more time playing and being creative. Maybe not as much time sat on a chair at a desk, putting pen to paper, moving, being active. They're working out how to manage their boredom. They're having to think outside the box. You know, I remember as a teacher, so I taught 4 and 5-year-olds that first year reception year in class, and I always knew what time it was. After this, we're doing this. Bang, bang, kids are doing this. We expect so much of our children. The day used to be so busy. Every minute was planned for. And it's suddenly not. I'd be really interested to see how the schools do manage the children returning, not just the social distancing, but actually they're going to go from perhaps a slower pace, extended periods of thinking time and creativity, to suddenly going back into
the grind.
And that's what does make me nervous.
And I think everyone is nervous. And what I'm hoping is that actually, as time goes on, you know, those in power can't necessarily ignore all of this, what's going to be going on. I've got a few questions, and we've got quite a few questions, actually. My children keep saying that they're bored, and they're 5 to 7 years old. What is this thing with bored? And how do we, you know, is it all about planning and actually allowing them to know the structure of the day? Because I think that actually really, really helps those periods of boredom, because you know what's maybe coming up. What's your take on just boredom, that word bored?
It's hard. It is really hard. And like I was saying, we are in a habit, even as adults, you know, I don't sit and watch the adverts anymore. As soon as the advert come on, I'm scrolling. Even sometimes when I'm watching a program, I'm scrolling. We're stimulated 24/7. And so suddenly when we're not, it's a bit of a shock, and it's like, right, well, what do I do now? And I think it's about empowering our children to beat the boredom, to find their own ways of managing that boredom. And whether that's being really clear to them, okay, this is your time now. You have set this. These are your toys. You need to find something to do with them. And it's hard, particularly at that young age. It can be really, really tricky.
Just to add to that, Richmond Cake Schools just said, you know, are they actually bored? You know, or are they just not doing something? And there's a difference, isn't there? They're not being stimulated, but they think that that's bored. Yeah. I'm just going to go on to the next question, which is sustainable interiors and living. Hello. Any tips for teenagers, keeping them entertained and engaged? Well,
oh, they're a bit big for me. All I would say... All I would say is, just like you were saying in your craft, talking about the crafting, you know, that creativity is so important. And I think it's about finding your spark, finding something that interests you, whether it's a hobby, and respecting that as a hobby and supporting them with a hobby, I think is the best thing you can do, particularly with older children.
Just to add to that, because obviously living with a 15-year-old, one of the things that I have found is picking up on those signals of interests elsewhere outside of the PS4, outside of the TV, outside of the house parties, outside of all of that, and also allowing sort of things that you might not have allowed normally. So the thing of supporting hobbies is it's almost a sniffing and feeling that, oh, they've been talking about that quite a bit. So Harry's now got into his music. So I actually did treat him to a little keyboard, and actually now he's mixing it on GarageBand, and actually now he's playing his guitars. And I think that's a real tip for teenagers, is just to see what that is, and it could be anything. And the second thing is, I think it's allowing them also to have some things to look forward to. You know, they're, you know, 15, you're going to be 16 next year, you're coming into adulthood. So I've now agreed, unbelievably, for an all-nighter on the game on the PS4. So he's going to start from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. Never would I have allowed that. But you know what? 6 weeks in, they need they can't see anyone. They need those little things that they can look forward to. And I'm sure it's the same with small kids. You know, it's planning not only the day, but potentially planning those things to look forward to, because we're not going on holiday. We're not going to meet friends. We're not going for lunches or meeting people. When you actually think about sort of this digital and crafting time, would you say that this is the main thing for you, is to plan the screen time? And also, how do we stop ourselves as parents doing that whole screen time nightmare? Are you on your phone, or you're on the iPad, or you're wanting to watch TV? Because there's something about that which is also that our children are going to live a very, very different life to the childhoods that we had. Technology is all around them. They see their parents on them continuously. You know, if Harry said screen time to me, I would be on my screen 15 hours a day. So a screen somehow. So what's your take on that? And especially for the younger kids?
I think with screen time, I find it's tricky. It can be really tricky. I think it does have its pros and cons. I think we can be as parents, can be quite quick to have, again, the guilt of, you know, oh my goodness, they're watching TV again. And it's that sort of guilty feeling. However, I do always say to parents that it's, yes, screen time, it can be tricky. It's about getting that balance, but also the content, what's being produced on what our children are consuming these days, can be of a very good quality. There are things that my son has come out with. I've not taught him it.
Oh, absolutely.
That's it. And so going back to the hobbies as well, you know, we now have access to amazing role models on Instagram that children are able to see, you know, whether it's sports stars, gaming stars, all these different people. So we do have access to these amazing role models and can see people building lives for themselves in different creative ways.
So we talked about play, but what about socializing and that lack of contact that they're having with their fellow kids?
I think at the moment, the way our timetable and the testing of our children numbers, read and write numbers, it's up there. It's the pinnacle. You know, that's what we're all aiming for. That's what everyone seems to be aiming for. Because of the way that the schooling works, you know, we think that, yes, it helps if children can read, write and know their numbers. And I once met with a parent who had, I think she said her little girl was 3. And she said to me, she knows the numbers to 10 and she can write a name. She knows the shapes and she knows the colours. So what do I need to teach her next?
My gosh.
And, you know, and it's like, okay, so can she share? You know, when she's in a group, will she talk to other children? Is she creative? Will she have a go at things? And I was trying to, you know, obviously not patronise the parent. I was trying to show her that, okay, knowing your colours, knowing your shapes, that's great. There's other qualities that we need in our children as well that we need to support. And like you were saying about our workforce is changing and the robots and technology, they don't have the social skills, they don't have the emotive language, and we need to make sure that our children have it more than ever. And I really hope that this lockdown has made us as parents, us as a country, realise the importance of socialising.
What a good point. What a good point. Because I do think that during this whole thing, you know, there could be that sort of thing that we're wanting to get them better at this and better at that. And actually, you know, it's about learning empathy, learning, as you said, a new skill, learning. There's so many softer skills that we could actually be embracing. And who better than parents to teach their children these things? Just tell me, before we go, just quickly, top 3 tips that you would say to parents who are pulling their hair out. What would they be? Okay, so stop the comparing, I think, has to be the first one, because it's not getting you anywhere. I'm guilty of it. I do it in all forms of life. But I think, please try, like I said at the beginning, your children already think you're the hero. Even if you're snuggled up together with a film, the 3rd film of the day, you're still in your PJs at 5 o'clock, your children will look at you thinking you're an absolute hero, you're the best person ever. I think it's also about having the right expectations for our children as well. Particularly young children, they can't concentrate for an hour. I know we'd like them to, but you can't, you know, you can't set up an activity and expect them to be there for an hour. It's just not going to happen. So always have something up your sleeve is always one of my tips. Is just, you know, think about what is going to be next, whether you're breaking up your day with snacks, with a story, with a conversation, you know, talking, hugs. They're just as important as your child cracking on with the schoolwork, giving your little one a cuddle, sitting and having a chat, being daft together, having a bath time at 2 o'clock at lunchtime for no reason other than you're bored. You know, it's okay. It's I think it's just about the novelty, thinking on your feet, trying to, you know, play somewhere new, do something. Maybe pulling out the sofa, play behind. Have they ever played behind the sofa before with the same old toys? Playing under the dining room table. Sometimes with kids, it's about novelty. It's just about mixing it up. You've been absolutely fantastic. It's just incredible. And really thank you for your time, because you've been standing on your feet, pregnant, with your little one doing Paw Patrol for the millionth time, and it's been brilliant. So thank you so much. Oh, well, go and make a nice cup of tea and get off your feet.
It will do.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm going to summarise. Parents are beating themselves up. We need to remember that we are the heroes. Start the day with the little ones and discuss what you're going to do for the day. I did it with Harry all the time, especially running not on the high street. I would plan, and I still do to this day. He actually now does it at 15 years old. Play is a priority in the education system. All of you out there can take that message and put it on all your social media. What if we all start talking about this more and more with everyone, that we want things to change in the education system after the coronavirus? Let's see what happens. Empowering our children to beat boredom. That's when they find their hobbies, and that's when they find their diamonds. You know, we all know it's those moments that we least expect it, when we find out potentially the wonderfulness about ourselves. Screen time can be beneficial. Make sure they're watching the good stuff and not the crap stuff. And it's an opportunity to learn soft skills. I loved Claire talking about that wonderful story that the mum just thought, you know, she could do the colours, she could do the letters, she could do all of these things. But could she share? Can she empathise? Can she start a conversation with an adult? Can she, you know, all these things? And I think that's the one thing that we parents can absolutely nail. Anyway, I'm going to go and have a cup of tea. As ever, thank you to Nat Westdale 3 and Royal Mail for allowing me to sit here and talk to people like Claire and help this community. All my love to you all.